My name is Agnet Max Makhwale. I'm a senior account manager at AWS. I'm based here out of Johannesburg. I'll be joined a little bit later by Neil Naidu, who's going to talk to us. He's from UCT, and he'll tell us about what they did. Okay. At AWS, we have a mission for education which speaks to how we digitally transform educational institutions in partnership with the full ecosystem of education, including learners, teachers, the community, researchers, who we're going to be focusing on quite a bit today, as well as technology providers. And one of the key areas, and just to talk a little bit about research, the areas that we like to focus on as far as research is concerned is no surprises. Generative AI, it's becoming quite a big thing as far as research is concerned. It's giving researchers new abilities. Researchers are also starting to build their own national AI large language model. In the case of the UAE, for example, where they've built their own national large language model, which is gaining quite a lot of traction over there. And generative AI is also fueling a lot of scientific breakthroughs, in what we do. And we're seeing a lot of as AWS, we're providing a lot of advanced generative AI infrastructure for researchers to do this. Big data, research is primarily about data. And I think with the proliferation of digital technologies, researchers are much easier able to collect masses and masses of data, which they can then begin to store in the right places, share it for collaboration across the world. We're seeing multiple researchers beginning to collaborate on common projects across the globe and across different boundaries. And obviously, we've got a big focus on the impact that it can build. And we're going to talk today about how we can commercialize some of the research, because research for research's sake doesn't really serve anybody, right? The industry is not without challenges. And I think if you paid any attention to the news over this year in particular, you would have seen that there's been quite a bit of regime changes related to fundings being frozen for researchers, and decades worth of partnerships being shut down, so researchers are fairly, quite challenged. And they're faced with sustainability challenges now, because without the same pockets of funds that are coming to them, how they're going to move forward. Clinical trials are being stopped halfway through, and researchers are now having to innovate in a better way to try and continue and reach the scientific outcomes that they've wanted to get to. As AWS, we have a key focus on trying to help them to empower researchers to get a faster time to science. We say we like to help them get a faster time to science. If you've done any research or know anybody that's done research, you will understand that in the past, what researchers used to do is work quite hard to try and build the technologies, particularly in the funding applications that they do. So they would spend a lot of time speccing the machines that they need, speccing the storage that they require for the research projects, and those become line items in the proposals that they have. They are not technologists, they are scientists, right? So they'd spend a lot of time doing that. They would buy the technology, use the technology, and quite often what happens to that technology is that once they've done with the project, they take it, decommission it, and put it in the cupboard behind the desk, and then it gets mothballed. Or in a university's case, what they do is they take it and they give it to IT. It's non-standard, and it's literally unusable, fairly wasted. So we help them do that. We've got partners that help them build that type of technology. In the cloud, they're able to spin up the services that they need, run their research projects, and then shut it down. We help them transform through data as well. So I mentioned earlier on that data is a very, very important part of their project. They're using AI to analyze and get new insights out of that data. And most importantly, once again, trying to maximize the impact and innovation of the innovations that they come up with at scale. We work quite closely with quite a number of partners. including the likes of Ronin, Giant, and in the South African environment, we're talking about UbuntuNet. In the African environment, UbuntuNet as well as TENET here, which is a research organization, a research network organization in South Africa. Diving a little bit deeper into how we empower the researchers to achieve their outcomes. You would have heard this today quite a bit, that as AWS, we provide quite a expansive set of technology resources for them to achieve the agility that they need as researchers. So spin up their services and spin it down when needed. Get them the scalability that's appropriate for the research project that they're doing. So quite often they're not overspec'd when they're doing their research project in the cloud. Security, we take care of the security of their data in particular. Fairly often you find that they consider their data as the strategic asset that they have as a researcher. And obviously we help them accelerate their impact, and I'll speak a little bit more about that. Just as an example, we did one quite major project with the Max Planck Institute, which is a large research and genomics institution in Germany, where we took their research project and they did it in the cloud, and they were able to do things like running 20,000 simulations within a period of 3 days on the cloud. The alternative would have been to do it on-prem and be able to do that perhaps taking months to do, work that could have taken months to do. Another one was where we helped the Fugaku Institute in Japan, and what they did was they took their entire research infrastructure that was on-prem and migrated all of it into the cloud. A whole 160,000 nodes that they were able to migrate to give them double the performance that they were able to get out of it. Right now, that facility that they've got on the AWS cloud is being used to do things like COVID-19 research and other drug discoveries. If you remember a couple of years ago, 4 years ago in South Africa, where we had the Omicron virus in South Africa. Okay, the Omicron virus was global, but it was discovered here in South Africa. I don't know if you're aware of that. Globally, people were talking about it as the South African virus, and I'm not going to say who said that, right? They called it the South African virus, but the truth about it is that it was found by South African scientists who were doing that genomic research on the AWS platform. Down in Cape Town, scientists based in Stellenbosch. Maximizing impact. So our assistance to researchers goes in, we try and help them in the full life cycle of what they do, right? First and foremost, I think centralizing their solution is quite important. We found that if you go into quite a number of these university institutions, their data is quite disparate and is sitting on multiple systems, multiple platforms. We help them to centralize it so that they can ask better questions of that same data. Okay, so we help them with that. We give them training. We provide training for them. So, well, like I said, they're scientists, they're not technologists, and rather than them focusing on the technology, you give them the ability to be able to focus on the science and get faster time to those scientific outcomes. We help them develop the AI models. Some of the research applications require specific AI models, and some of them want to actually commercialize it and turn it into API solutions that can be used by other organizations and turn it into software as a service, for example, that they do. And we help them get the global impact that they need. Because you can spin up in minutes in any region in South Africa. And most importantly, I think the research funding piece, which I spoke about. As AWS, we actually have people who are former researchers themselves who help these researchers to build their proposals. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that. So in terms of their full life cycle, what normally happens when you're a researcher is that you would make a proposal for the research idea that you want to start. That would get an approval of some sort, and inside there's requirement for the technical ability to be able to to spec the services that you're going to need. We actually have partners in the room, TrueMark, who actually have built a Gen AI-enabled research solution that helps researchers to spin out the servers, to actually scope them correctly and get them ready for their project. We help them define their research scope. We actually help them as well to look at the feasibility of the research idea and whether it can be commercially viable in its own right. We help them with the prototypes and the grant applications. I mentioned that. And in terms of training, we like to do it in multiple ways. So there's a standard training that you can get on platforms such as skillbuilder.aws. I'm sure you might have heard about that. But for researchers and specialized cases, we like to do what we call immersion days. And an immersion day is a hands-on workshop where we dive deep into the particular area you are focused on as a team or as a research community. And we go and unpack the specific technologies you're going to use. We get you hands-on in there. And quite often what happens when you come out of there, you come out with a full architecture that you're ready to go to put into deployment in that environment. And we've also created some dedicated research learning pathways for researchers. They don't need to learn everything, but they need to pick up just on the specific products that they need to get their research going. And once again, I've spoken about the training plans and the ramp-up guides that we've built and we've got available on various platforms on AWS. We also got some pre-baked solutions that we provide for them, that they can work. Some of them, the two on the top slide, on the top of the slide, are actually AWS products. So Amazon Lightsail for Research is a simple click-to-deploy type of platform. So if you are a researcher, you will recognize some of the logos that are at the top there, like RStudio, Scilabs, that researchers normally use to analyze their data. In Amazon Lightsail for Research, you can get a platform that's got all of the components that are required. You don't need to build it and architect it yourself at the click of a button. Research and Engineering Studio, fairly similar. It's available on GitHub, so you can go and deploy it in your own platform and customize it, most importantly, for your own requirements. Ronin and Research Gateway are platforms that are created by some of our partners, much better at doing things like planning for your budgets, managing your costs associated with that, and you've got some very specialized medical research environments that have been created for them. Okay, so supporting for researchers for commercialization. I think I mentioned this is probably the most important. Why spend all that time if you're not going to commercialize it in some way, right? So we help our customers to assess the opportunity. We help them come up with a funding support. We also provide quite a number of credits, the research credits that are available on AWS, or the Activate credits around that. And also, I spoke about the software as a service and API developments. So quite often, these end up as software products that can be consumed by either systems or other solutions. And then we also help them to list them on the AWS marketplace. There's thousands of data platforms. In fact, not thousands. There's about 788 data sets that are available for consumption by researchers on the AWS platform. So if you know of a project called Digital Earth Africa, Digital Earth Africa is an Earth observation project that's available for free across the continent, focuses on taking Earth observation data, and they make it available for anybody that wants to go and develop products based on Earth observation on the AWS platform. Because they've chosen to open source the data that they have, we're actually storing north of 6 petabytes of data in the Cape Town region for free for them. So if there's data sets which qualify, we're able to store it on the AWS platform also for free. So with without much further ado, I'd like to call Neil. If you can join me in welcome him on the stage, and he'll tell you what they did at UCT. Thank you, Neil.
Can you guys hear me? Is this fine? Okay. So, yeah, thank you, and thank you for the time and the opportunity to be here. So my name is Niall Naidu. I work at the University of Cape Town. My official job title is the New Venture Support Manager. And my primary objective at the university is to unlock third stream income from the university IP. My specific role looks at taking the university IP and establishing a startup company, right, to bring that into market. And the main reason of why we need to do, and why we are quite a strategic office within the university, is because it unlocks third stream income. Like Max said, it's difficult to raise fees and it's difficult to find research income. They start to dry up, right? So unlocking and using the university assets, which one of the crucial ones is intellectual property, is one of our key mandates, right? So when I prepared this talk, I really prepared it for a university manager so that they don't have to go through the pain of what I had to do to set this thing up, right? So that's number one. It's also at the intersection between research and startups, right? So if you're a startup founder and the main thing that I want you to take away from me is the process of how to set up the business, but also how to navigate AWS's platforms. And the third one is for developers. I underestimated how important AWS is from a recruitment perspective, and then the time to actually become useful within a project as well. So just an overview of an office and what we do. We have what we call a technology scouting function, where we have a team that goes out and meets with different academics, research groups, predominantly at an academic level, so they're full-time academic staff, but postdoc, PhD and master's level, right? What they do is they sit with the researchers, they understand what is their research portfolio, what is the equipment, and then what opportunities are what opportunities are lucrative enough for commercialization. We then have an IP team. Now, this is important, right? The IP team comes in and sits in and looks at what is this opportunity, and how do we have what we call a protectable strategy, a patent, a trademark, a secret, right? But what they do is they actually wrap the technology in a tradable asset for us, right? And then it moves to the third phase, which is what we call commercialization. Here our team comes in and says, okay, we have this technology, we know exactly what our patenting strategy, trademarks and so on. How do we commercialize it? One avenue is licensing, right, where we license it up to a different company. But the second mode, which is my job, is to commercialize via a startup company, right? At the University of Cape Town, we're probably one of the most, I think we are the most sophisticated office on the continent. We are an LP in a venture capital fund called the University Technology Fund. We also have an internal VC fund that actually funds our IP into a startup, right? So we've got these processes in place, right? And just to give you the breadth of the office, and this is where AWS became very important, right? We work on opportunities from biotech, so that's diagnostics, vaccines, and pharmacology and pharmacokinetics, right? All the way to aerospace, CFD models, building digital twins, drones, right? Autonomous vehicles and so on, right to fundamental work. So the physics, the numerical models that you guys are seeing on these large language models, all the way down to art, right? Art pieces, right? And AWS is a very strategic partner for us because it's one of the few companies, probably globally, that can offer us products and services, right? Has the expertise, right? And the experience in how to do this, right? And if you look at these projects, so these are actual projects that I manage in my portfolio. There's many of us. I have 60 projects. I was actually surprised that almost 80% of them are actually building on AWS, right? And there's a very important reason why they do this, okay? My background, I came to UCT to do a PhD. I ended up as an academic, and then they moved me to the management team, right? But my core foundations is I come from the management consulting, and I come from the private equity space. Transactions is how I work, right? So my job when I came into this specific role was to build out the venture process, right? A transaction process. And I had to set up 4 phases. The first one looked at administration, so making sure that we complied with UCT policies, we complied with CIPC, SARS, and also setting up the MOIs, the shareholder agreements, and making sure our compliance processes also were also compliant with external VCs, right? So this was a key foundation because if you want to invest in one of our startups, the process is very seamless, right? The second phase is the startup advisory phase, right? Now we actually sit and say, okay, what is this technology? Okay, what are we actually building here? What is our product strategy? What is our marketing strategy? How are we recruiting in order to build this, right? And then how do we manage from a project management size? And this includes people, time, and money, right? Okay, then we get to the transaction phase. Now, this was very interesting. When I got to UCT, I asked them, how long does it take you to get to market? They said infinity, right? Infinity, right? So that's not good for business, right? So we set a goal to say, look, when we get an opportunity, we have 5 years. If we don't bring it into market, we kill it, right? 5 years. I met Yusuf and Max. I said, guys, it's taken 5 years. My goal is to bring it on to 3 years, right? And it was excellent. But we got stuck, right? And this is really, really important if you're trying to navigate the university system. We got stuck on product development. Product development is tricky, especially when you're moving from research to commercialization. If from a business perspective, you think about putting your own money in. Do you really want to see a product that using 30 tools in 30 different platforms, right? The technical due diligence takes forever, right? The other side of it is your payments. You are paying 30 different vendors, right? So it becomes very tricky from an administration perspective. I sat with Max. I sat with Yusuf. They came down, we flew up, but it was a very iterative process, right? And the key thing here is that we defined this problem very carefully, right? And the problem really sat in 2 domains when it comes to product development. One is taking the R&D, the fundamental research, and I know I'm talking from a university context, but really if you're doing product development, it's R&D, right? Moving from R&D to product, right? And why we partnered up with AWS, this is a crucial one, right? It enabled 4 things: functionality, right? Reliability, convenience, right, for both developers and the customer, and then price points, right? The AWS credits are gold because what it does, it allows you to experiment while you're doing price discovery, right? And because you don't have 30 different vendors that you have to pass all the cost on to the customer, it becomes a little bit lower price point, right, for your early adopters. So that was crucial. The second thing was talent management. Bloody hell. Finding developers at a university should be easy, but it was not, right? So we had to actually, and this is the crucial part, right? How do we solve this problem, right? We had to go into the developer society, right? I had to stand there and say, guys, I need you guys to do the fundamentals of AWS so that we are talking the same language, right? Once they started it, they became hooked and they started to go, right? Now I have a developer list. I have a spreadsheet with 3 columns on it: the name, the email address, and the level of the AWS certification. So when I need developers for my startups that I'm building out, I have a list of people to call from, right? But if you're not on that AWS accreditation list, it is difficult for me to work with you because we're not talking the same language, right? It takes me much longer to bring you onto a project. The second component, which was crucial, was we have a prototyping lab at UCT called the Menzies Design Lab, right? And the colleague's name is Yusuf. He was excellent, right? So I sat with him and said, Yusuf, I need you guys to do this, right? Here are all the resources. When anybody wants to build a software product, you take them through the process, right? And the crucial thing was partnering up with a company called Silicon Overdrive, so they're an AWS partner. And what they did is they iteratively sat with us and we built out a very seamless process, right? And this process consists of 4 components, right? The first thing is, if we want to build a company, or if you want to build a company and build it on AWS, what is eligible and what is not eligible? In the university context, crucial. Research sits in public sector, startup sits in startups, right? 2 differentiated models, right? So we had to navigate that component. When do we start up a company, right? And how do we access the credits, right? That's a crucial one, maximizing the credit spend. So we sat with Silicon Overdrive, sat with the educational team. They told us how to do that. Now, why this is important is your ROI on your opportunities that you're spinning out look far greater because your initial investment costs are far lower, right? That's very important. The other side of it is your unit costs. So because you're maximizing the spend, you can experiment and do price discovery a little bit more cowboyish, right? Because you don't know what you're figuring out, right? You don't know how valuable the product is. You're trying to cover your costs, so it's a bit of a mess, but it's fine, right? But you've got the AWS credits. The next component is set in expertise. Now, expertise is crucial. Number one, navigating AWS credits requires a 4-year degree, right? We do not have that time. We want to pick up some call and say, okay, how do we navigate this? The second thing is when something goes wrong, this is crucial. I know I have someone to call. Pick up the phone and I either call Silicon Overdrive, which is Ross, or I call the AWS team. They respond and we figure out how to do it. And then the fourth component, especially if you're from another university, is listen, I'm from the university environment. We think we know everything. We don't, right? Sit with the teams and optimize this thing, right? Sit and consistently look at your process and say, where's the bottlenecks? How do we improve it? How do we improve it? How do we improve it, right? Okay. Now, what I just want to show you is a case study of how we actually built on AWS and took it to market, right? So this comes from my research portfolio, right? So I was the academic that did this. And the story is kind of funny if you think about it. When I say it, you're going to probably laugh. So I knew the guys at FIFA long ago. I met them again in COVID. The first flight out, I meet the guys in FIFA. I said, guys, you know, I'm teaching a class. It's COVID. They need cash. Give us some money. Tell us what to do. Simple. They said, right now, no problem, right? We want to know who plays in Africa, because we don't know who plays in Africa. We don't know how talented they are, and we don't know how injury prone they are, right? They gave us 3 parameters. We said, no problem. It's a data science problem. Okay, no problem. And then they said, now, because I like you so much and you always ask me for money, right? We are sending you to Malawi in COVID. And not only are you going to be in Malawi, you're going to be doing women's soccer, right? And women's soccer is complex because there are no guidelines. A male athlete and a female athlete are significantly different, and no one knows the female athlete, right? So they sent us to there. Anyway, so we went out, we did the research study, it was fantastic, but the crucial thing was, I found this developer, he was 19 years old. This is an important story, right? 19 years old, he was in my class. Firstly, to get to my class, you are pretty clever, right? I don't have to do much due diligence on you. I asked him, open up the laptop. He had VS Code. That was good enough for me, right? Said, welcome to the team. You are now leading the project for FIFA, right? He thought I was joking. I was like, no, you're leading this thing, right? And we started to build on AWS. And immediately, as you can imagine, FIFA were like, how are you guys managing all of this? How are you managing the health records? What do you have on security? All of these things. So all these questions came out. And we said, no, that's okay. AWS is our partner. We're going to work together on this, right? We ended up building out this product and then commercializing it, right? Which we call MediCoach. Today, MediCoach, as we stand, there are 6 guys, a girlfriend, and a baby, a newborn baby. That is our team, right? It is now the largest African athlete management system on the continent, right? It's freaky how quickly this product scaled. It is very freaky how quickly it scaled. And I'm consistently have to keep checking myself that this thing is lucrative, right? Because it's super lucrative. And if you're building a company or a product, right? Or let's talk about a product, right? The solution that we built, no one wanted to pay for. 0. We could predict injury in women, but nobody wanted to pay for that, right? So we took about a year to actually do product market fit, right? But we figured out the product, and if you look at this complex diagram, that is how you run a high performance program in most sports, right? So we benchmarked this with the English Premier League, and this was kind of freaky because if you are a second year student, right, we watched the Champions League match. On Thursday, we were speaking to the clinical doctor with the injured player in the background, right? Because they wanted us to look at it and do this a little bit more professionally, right? So we did it, and just on this slide here, if you look at how much is required, how many different features and stuff is required, we had to build something that was scalable, right? And this is what AWS really allowed. We had a scalable architecture to make mistakes and add more features into it, so functionality. We were able to maximize the credits, right? So make sure our ROI was consistently targeting, right? Which was crucial because we didn't need VC funding. That was a scary part about it. We did not need VC funding because AWS covered our unit costs and then we had some cash for the salaries, right? And then the third part there was the well-architect framework, right? That is a very powerful thing because we consistently had architecture quality through the whole process, okay? Then we went out, we said, look, here's all the technicalities, right? I know you guys saw the IoT side, which is phenomenal, right? But in Africa, realistically, not many people could afford that. So we needed to do non-invasive measurements, right? So that was a key thing that we did. We were able to actually do a lot of work on talent prediction, right? But injury prediction as well, right? And then we had to actually make this thing usable, right? So actually take it from a technical PhD postdoc level right down to your school coach, right? So the school coach needed to actually understand it, right? So we're able to do that. The next component is what we call frictionless data collection, right? So if you look at this, we are able to do computer vision, right? So now how you wear your wearables, that's dead, right? You just have cameras that track you, how you're moving. Not only do they track how you're moving, distance covered, acceleration, and so on, they also track how the opposition is moving as well, right? So we're able to build on top of that. What you're seeing there is a new Hawkeye, right? This is a new Hawkeye. It's literally running off a GoPro, right? A few AWS servers, right? And again, it is 6 guys, a girlfriend, and a newborn baby, right? So whenever when we sit with investors, they are kind of shocked at how we're able to do it. Because if you look at the maths and the physics that is required to do this, it's quite advanced. And then to run it in real time, and then reduce the margin of error, right? And we're trying to get to the point, we're probably about a year off, where it can be done at I would say maybe 1/10 of the cost in a schoolboy game, in a school match, right? So can you imagine the experience? You're playing a schoolboy match, and all of a sudden you want you want to review the decision, right? You're able to do that. So that's an example of how we were able to do this with AWS. It's been a really good journey, right? If you're at another university, and this is very crucial, pick up the phone and ask, right? We will give you all our processes, we'll tell you how to do it, and so on. If you're a startup founder and you want to build your product and your company, use them, ask questions. We've put in the partners, so Silicon Overdrive, you've got my email address, it's just nile.naidu@uct.ac.za. Ask questions. If you're a developer, join your society, do the skills for program as well, because we are consistently looking for people. Okay, so that is me. I hope it was good, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Neil. One key skill I want to learn from Neil is how to meet people and tell them that they like you and they must give you money. Congratulations. Another round of applause for him, please. Okay, so just maybe to wrap up, I think Neil spoke about what the things I'm going to say now. So if you are not already if you're doing research, or if you're intending on building products, you've got some data you need to analyze or whatever. If you know people that are just doing their university research degree, consider AWS as a platform. Register on there. Start with the free tier account and start experimenting. When you get your hands dirty on it, you'll begin to learn very quickly what's there. If you're an institution, if you're from an institution, consider implementing a hybrid strategy. Yes, keep the stuff that you've got on-prem. Consider what the cloud can do for you, and let's see how you can begin to accelerate some of the outcomes that you're looking for. And become a part of the AWS Science Hub. There's plenty to learn from. What we're trying to do is bring together researchers, bring together technology people, so that you can learn from one another and achieve much faster time to impact. And that's my presentation for today. Please don't forget, if you are not part of the Builders program, do register as a builder. The QR code, I'm sure you've seen it 100 times today. And please don't forget to rate the talk on the app. Okay, thank you very much.